All right, we've got The Last Jedi Novelization. I just finished reading it. Probably could have plowed through it in a day or two, but I have kids and life is busy. So, okay, all right. What I'm going to do is basically, it's the movie, but there are a lot of little extra things in the book that were not in the movie. So for those of you that do not like to read books or have no intention of reading the book and you just want to know what the extra stuff was, this video is for you. And then I'll give my rating at the end. Okay, all right, so the first sentence of the book is, Luke Skywalker stood in the cooling sands of Tatooine, his wife by his side. Yeah, that had me like doing a double take there for a second, because it goes into this dream that Luke is having about what his life would have been like if he had not left with Obi-Wan. And it is in some ways sad, and it is some ways depressing because Luke sees what his life would have been, obviously very boring as a moisture farmer. But yeah, it's just, it does talk about how he hears in the media, so to speak, that Princess Leia has been executed and, you know, that kind of thing. And you understand that the Empire has completely taken over, of course. So that was pretty cool. It's only a couple pages though. Let me see. Yeah, like a page and a half or so, 2-3 pages. So, all right. Then at the beginning of the book, we have a tribute to Han. So his death is acknowledged by the Resistance. I get for time-wise and pacing why it was not filmed. We also have some communication and some moments between Rose and Paige, which just strengthens their sister bond a little bit. We see Rey arriving on the island, and she's analyzing the X-Wing, computing in her mind what parts still might be salvageable and what she could get for them. Her honing instincts and her mechanical intuition and how she's force sensitive with that. She spent years honing it, and it kind of reminded me of Anakin in The Phantom Menace. So she's honing her instincts, and that was a pretty cool moment just to hear her thoughts in just the split second she's seeing the X-Wing down in the water. Snoke, his insight behind why he has the supremacy as a ship. He does not want to have a base for the First Order. He wants to use his ship. Hux, it also mentions that Hux is one of the few beings that has ever seen Snoke in person. He keeps his identity secret. People aren't worthy to be in his presence, kind of thing. That's the impression I got. It does mention Kylo containing the blast he got from Chewie's bowcaster at the end of The Force Awakens. He contained part of the blast force with the Force. That's why he did not die right away. So that's just a little insight there for you. Leia does have a memory of Ben following Han around, always playing with the dice he used to win the Falcon. So that pops up in the book as well, which is pretty cool. If I hadn't known about that ahead of time because of the Han Solo movie, that was just, oh, that's what those dice are for. He used them to win the Falcon, and Ben used to play with them as a child. That was pretty cool. And I think Kylo also goes into his thoughts behind the torpedo that hit his mom's ship. The actual quote is, if he had known, he could have stopped the torpedo, freezing it in space without a thought. And he says could have stopped it. So the thought was, in my mind, that he did think of it as an option, even though I don't think it's something that he would have done. If he had really known and been in tune with his co-pilots, he would have stopped that torpedo, or could have. It also mentions that Maz is over a millennium old. Rey's third lesson was leaving the Caretakers to fend for themselves when the pirates were attacking. So this was actually a deleted scene as well, and it's one that I thought should have been left in the movie. Basically, she sees boats coming to the island, and Luke tells her it's pirates coming to pillage and to take everything from the Caretakers, and she wants to go help them, and Luke's like, no, they need to fend for themselves. If you fight back today, they're going to come back with a bigger force next month. He wants her to ignore the anger she would feel if the pirates were to attack, because going based off of your anger is never a good thing. The cave scene with Luke and Rey, it does mention in the book that he was planning on leaving with her until she confronts him about what happened with Ben. Rose's inner monologue when she's interacting with Finn, she's really annoyed that he keeps mentioning Rey, so that's hilarious. I didn't really get that impression in the movie. It just, oh, she's cute and she's got a crush on him. That's about it. I didn't see her as being like really annoyed that he's just given all this attention to another female. It does also mention that Finn knew of the existence of Snoke Ship. He didn't say anything because, he obviously didn't have the time. And the book, there's a quote in the book, it says, just as he had known about so many other things he'd seen in his years of the First Order service. So I thought that was kind of interesting how much other stuff is out there that we are going to now be getting information from Finn about. There also is a deleted scene that is in the book. Finn is recognized when he's breaking into the Supremacy, and the guy who recognizes him thinks he's been promoted to a captain. BB-8 has some hilarious inner monologues about how annoying humans are. And Finn's resolve to join the Resistance, you hear this inner monologue, was set when DJ betrayed them. He wasn't set on 100% sure if he was going to go back and join the fight, but that stiffened his resolve. Another deleted scene that was actually on the bonus content is Rose biting Hux when they've been captured. Now, the book, when the Supremacy is ripped from bow to stern, when Laura Dern, goes through the ship on light speed, that was cool in the book, but it is way cooler on the screen. And the only other movie I can think of that is similar to that is the Lord of the Rings movie, when the Beacons of Gondor are lit. Just the building of the music and the beautiful scenery. Like, you can read that in a book in 2 paragraphs, but seeing it on screen, it is so much cooler. So that scene itself in the book was just like, oh, okay, but when you see it in the theater on the big screen, it's like, whoa. Poe actually convinces Rose once they're on Crate to pilot one of the ski speeders. She didn't want to do that. She didn't want to go out and fight. She didn't think she was qualified enough, and he basically encouraged her, which was nice to see his leadership skills step out a little bit. Okay, so it does talk about at the end, when Rey and Chewie are scanning Crate surface for life forms, and we get a little insight into the Falcon. I'm just going to read it real quick. So R2-D2 is trying to talk to the Falcon. When the Falcon mentioned something about barreling being able to detect the back end of a bantha at high noon, R2-D2 suppressed an electronic sigh. The Falcon had always been cantankerous. 3 droid brains quarreling endlessly unless forced to work together. Still, R2-D2 usually got along with the ship well enough. For one thing, none of the brains could stand C-3PO. For another, one of them had a fondness for both romantic gossip and dirty jokes, both of which R2-D2 had learned to provide in large quantities. So that's just funny to me that the Falcon has 3 droid brains that are always just have weird personalities and are trying to communicate with the droids. I thought that was pretty hilarious. The other thing is we see a little bit of insight into when there's that connection between Rey and Kylo right as she's getting on the Falcon at the end. As Kylo stared at them, he sensed something else. A tremor in the Force, the prelude to a familiar connection. He stared at Rey. She stared back at him. Her gaze level and unafraid. There was no hatred in her eyes as there once had been, but there was no compassion either. A moment later, Rey severed the connection, leaving Kylo alone in the gloom of his father's dice resting in the palm of his upraised hand. A moment later, they faded and vanished. So, one, that tells me that they can connect on their own. They don't need Snoke to do it anymore. And 2, Rey has understood now that Kylo is a lost cause. There's no compassion in her eyes, but there's not hatred. So I think her intentions now are going to be a little bit more pure, whereas she was more focused on revenge and just getting him to pay for his crime of killing Han Solo, among other things. But now I think there's more of a wisdom behind her intentions. And then it also has a moment with Leia and Chewie in the Falcon cockpit, just mourning everything that they just went through. Mourning Luke, mourning Han's death, and Akbar, and just everything that they've lost. So overall, I mean, this book was really good. It didn't get into, I think, more of the thought process behind characters like I wished it would have, but it was still a good read. It was still enjoyable. If you like reading books, it's definitely worth checking out. So overall, I'm going to give this, I'm going to say an 8 out of 10. All right, Star Wars nerds, chime in on the comments and tell me what you think. Did you read the book or did you listen to it on Audible? What was your preferred version, and what extra things in the book did you enjoy the most? All right, if you like watching Star Wars stuff, check out Collider Jedi Council. They air a show every Thursday. They talk about everything Star Wars. They also have a fan group on Facebook called Collider Jedi Council Fan Group, so check them out. All right, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you. Bye.